Hey, what's going on guys? Liquid here, and today I'm bringing you another top 5 video. Now, sticking with the Final Fantasy theme, and since there's a new expansion for Final Fantasy XIV just around the corner, I figured what better way to celebrate and get ready for Stormblood than with a guild guide. So, here are the top 5 ways to make guild in Final Fantasy XIV. Now, before we jump in though, I do just want to note that these methods will vary depending on what server you're on. You may earn a little more, you may earn a little less, and the order might be slightly different. But, without further ado, let's jump straight into it, shall we? Okay, so coming in at number 5, we have the Diadem. Now, with the Diadem, a lot of people tend to go more towards the battle class side to get tier 5 materia. However, in terms of profit, that's actually not the best. Now, what I found to work the most in terms of guild per hour is if you have a level 60 gathering class, then jump into the gathering side of the Diadem. It doesn't matter what material you gather, what shard you gather, none of that matters. All you want to do is basically speed through it and get the 10 spoils at the end of it. Now, in terms of time frame, you can actually do 2 Diadem runs per hour, mainly due to the 30-minute lockout, so you can't do any more than that. However, you're also not likely to do any less than that either, which makes it a very consistent method. Unless, of course, you're on a low population server in which queue times might be a little long. Now, once you've got your 20 spoils per hour, what you want to do is check the market boards and see what shards are going for what prices. Now, per hour, you can basically get 1,600 shards, because you can get 800 shards per trip to the Diadem, since it's 80 per spoil. Now, when you finally know what shard is selling for the most, turn all those spoils into that type of shard and then stick them up on the market board. Now, again, it is dependent on what server you're on for queue times and shard prices, but typically you're looking at around 70 to 100k per trip to the Diadem, which ends up being around 150 to 200k per hour. Not bad considering there's so little effort and work actually involved in this method, but obviously, it's quite a low earner, which is why this is coming in at number 5. Now, let's say we kick it up a notch, shall we? Okay, so for this method, you are going to need a level 60 Culinarian and a level 60 Alchemist. They are also going to need some moderately decent stats. Now, when I say moderately, basically as long as you can craft blue and red script items, no problem, then you're going to be perfectly fine for this method. Okay, so what I suggest you start by doing is, on your Culinarian, you want to craft the deep fried Okeanis, or however you pronounce that last bit. I know I'm never going to get it right, and you can let me know how it's supposed to be pronounced down in the comments. But yeah, what you want to do is you want to start crafting them, but make sure you craft them as collectibles, because what you're going to do with these is turn them in ILvL for the tokens. And once you've got 20, 30 tokens, or however many you want, then it's time to move on towards getting blue scripts. Now, for blue scripts, you've got a few different methods. You've got the custom deliveries, which can get you nearly 1,000 per week, or what I like to do is the Alchemist way, which is by crafting a Book of Aurum Regis, and then with the books, you get 118 per turn-in as long as you meet the quality requirement. So I'd basically, just craft an inventory full, turn them all in for blue scripts, and then with those blue scripts, I basically just turn them into the blue script tokens. Now, once you've got your Culinarian tokens and your blue script tokens, it's then time to turn those in ILvL to get your level 180 Culinarian crafting boots. Now, I know these boots are terrible, however, when you desynth them, you can actually get some really good items to sell. Namely, you can get glass fibers, which, depending on the server, can sell between 50k each to 150k each. And now, I know in this video I was really unlucky with them, however, you do actually typically get them quite commonly, 9 times out of 10. Or, You can also get Fieldcraft free materials, and again, depending on server, I've seen these go for anywhere between 30k and 70k. And the good thing about this is you get more than one. You can actually get between 1 and I've actually gotten 3 Fieldcraft free materials once. Granted, I've only got the 3 once out of, I don't even want to know how many times I've desynthed these items. Typically, you're going to get 2 though. So just keep that in mind. But either way, it's still very, very good for profit, and in the end can net you, if you factor in the item crafting time for the turn-ins, you're probably looking at around between 2 to 5 million gil per hour with this method, as long as you do it in bulk. If you don't do a really big bulk, you're probably actually going to be looking at a little bit lower, maybe around the 2 to 3 million gil. Okay, and now that the training wheels are off, let's move on to number 3, which is Fieldcraft Demimateria free only. Now, for this method, you are going to need 2 things. 1, you need a leather worker with a desynth rating of preferably 100 plus, but you can do this method with at least 70 plus. And for the second thing you're going to need is gil. A lot, and I mean a lot of gil. Now, you can do this with however little gil you want, but for best results, I typically tend to start with at least 10 million. Now, what you want to do is head over to Uldar, and basically right in front of the Aetheryte, there's a shop that you can buy wedding clothes from. Now, what you want to do is buy the bridesmaid sandals and desynth them. Now, with this, you can get a few things. You can get spruce lumber, you can get hippogriff leather, or you can get Fieldcraft free materia. Now, the good thing about this method is, depending on the sale price of your Fieldcraft free materia, not only do you earn all your gil back that you spend, but you could earn profit. Now, again, server dependence, for how much profit you do actually earn, this can be anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 gil per Demicraft materia, all the way up to 5,000 or 6,000. Now, depending on how much you start with, will obviously greatly influence that profit margin. For example, in this video, I start with 10 million gil, give or take a bit for teleport costs, and I have already done a trip around the shop with 300k because I did a group of 50, so that's why I'm only at 9.7k excuse me, in the video. Now, with that 10 million gil, typically on average whenever I do this method, I always end up with between 15 and 20 million. So that is a profit of between 5 and 10 million gil. Now granted, this is time consuming and very, very, very boring. However, just whack Netflix on, watch a movie while you're doing it, and you can earn a few million gil in the meantime, because this is a very brain dead method, to be perfectly honest. But the more you stick with it, the more gil you're going to earn. Now, one thing I have done is I've spent a full week doing this, and I'm talking 6 to 12 hours a day for a whole week doing this. And in the end of that week, I'd actually made, now this is pure profit, not how much I'd made altogether and then spent on more items to desynth. In terms of pure profit, I ended up with over 125 million gil, and that's in a week. Granted though, as I said, that is from 8 to 12 hour days doing nothing but this method for 7 full days. So, do take that with a grain of salt. While the return is very, very good, it's also a very, very heavy time investment, and my god does it get boring. But in the end, as I say, you can end up with a very, very good profit margin. But this one is not for the faint of heart. Dun 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 dun, bonus. Okay, now that you've just finished your desynth for Fieldcraft free materials, you see all that spruce lumber you've got lying around? Well, sure, you can stick it on the market board if you want for, a couple hundred to a couple thousand gil a piece. Or you can spend a couple hundred gil more and turn it into Mastercraft with Demimateria. Now for this, what you want to do is you do need an alchemist and you do need a carpenter. As long as your alchemist is above level 30 and your carpenter can craft level 50 1-star items, you're good to go. So first of all, head over to Outlanosca and go to the Umagoro Beast Tribe. Yeah, the Umagoro Beast Tribe. And you can buy Aldgoat horns from them. And using your alchemist, you want to turn them into horn glues. Now, you're going to need 2 horn glues per spruce lumber that you want to do this on. Now, once you've got all your horn glue and you've already got your spruce lumber, swap over to your carpenter class and turn those spruce lumbers and horn glues into spruce plywoods. Now, what you want to do with these spruce plywoods is you can actually swap the high quality spruce plywoods in Mordona for crafting gear, the old level 50 I-70 crafting items. Now, what you typically want to do is swap them over for the carpenter, and then as long as your blacksmith desynth is high enough, now you're going to need 70 to 100 desynth, again, much like the Fieldcraft materia. So once you've done all that, you've got all your carpenter tools, desynth them all, and you can get a ton of Mastercraft materials. You can get even more Fieldcraft free materials, and you can also get a few dark steel ingots and dark steel nuggets as well to add on the profit. So what you're effectively doing, you've got spruce lumber which is worth a couple hundred to a couple thousand. You're going to spend a couple hundred gil more, and then you're going to turn that into items that typically go for anywhere between, dark steel nuggets go for 5 to 7k, ingots go for 10 to 20k. Mastercraftery is dependent on server. I've seen that go for as little as 10k, all the way up to still being worth 100k a piece. And then, you've got your Fieldcrafteries, which again go for between 30 and 60k. So, you're really upgrading the profit margin there for so little extra investment, and is really worth doing. And on to the final two. So, for number 2, we're going to be looking at Supramax potions. Now, this one you do need to do some research beforehand, because if your server's anything like mine, there's going to be botters who have basically got a complete monopoly on the market. Now, before the botter arrived, botters arrived in this market, the Supramax potions used to be incredibly good. In terms of profit, you could have been looking at 20-30 million plus a day, easily, as long as you're on a populated server of raiders. But unfortunately, with the botters arriving, the potion market on my server has been absolutely destroyed. Now, what you want to do, first of all, what you need for this is a 4-star alchemist. Now, typically, I would suggest having a specialist alchemist, since then you get access to a nice little innovative touch ability. If you don't have that, it's not a problem. It's just going to be a bit longer to craft, and you're also not going to be able to use the macro that I'm going to stick down in the description below. If you have got a specialist alchemist and it's 4-star capable, then let's jump straight into it. Okay, so I strongly suggest actually setting up an Excel sheet for this, just so you can work out how much you're going to spend, how much you're going to earn, and if it's worthwhile doing so. If you don't have Excel, then jump on Google and use Google Drives, because it's pretty much the same thing. You can use all the same calculations, and it just makes life so much simpler. Now, as I say, first what you want to do is you want to check the market for the potions. You want to make sure no one's botting it, make sure someone hasn't got 600-700 potions listed up for some super ridiculously cheap price. And you also want to check the material market. Now, you can gather your own materials, however, since one of them is locked behind a time lock, you're not really going to get a lot of profit per hour that way. Granted, everything you earn is going to be profit if you gather your own materials, however, you're going to be earning a lot less. So step 1 is checking the prices of the materials, and then checking how much the potions are selling for. Throw all this into an Excel sheet like I've done on the video, and you'll be able to see roughly how much you're going to earn, and is it worthwhile. Now, for me, on my server, it's not really all that worthwhile, to be honest. Sure, you can do a stat here or there, earn a little, but it's not worth throwing yourself into like a long-term investment. Now, typically the biggest price point you're going to have to face on this is going to be either Noble Sage or Duskborn Aether Sand. Now, you don't need high quality on any of these items, so just get normal and we're good to go. Craft them up and throw them up. Now, again, the two main sellers are Supramax Potion of Strength and Supramax Potion of Dexterity. However, you do want to see what sells the most, and not for what sells for the most, what sells the most, since typically you're going to want to move these quite quickly with how close Stormblood is now. And we're here at number 1. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this is the best method for making gil, and that is crafting priestly omelettes. Now, for this you are going to need a 4-star culinarian, and again, much like the potions, I do suggest having your culinarian as a specialist. Now, why are these so good? Well, they're literally dirt cheap to make. I mean, depending on market board prices, you could make them for less than 5,000-6,000 gil, and then you could sell them for anywhere between 60 to 70k gil per craft. Now, again, you do have to do a little research like the potion, so I do suggest setting up an Excel sheet. You know, you want to make sure, well, just get what they sell for, get the material costs, and then work out what your profit is going to be per craft, and then, you know, divide it by like 100 crafts and so on and so forth. Now, again, like the potions though, this is going to be dependent on the market and on botters. Now, I mean, 2 months ago, this was absolutely insane gil gain. I mean, I could go getting 100 mil a week off these omelettes a couple months ago, because, you know, no one else was really making them, and I was crafting them for, oh, must have been between 5 and 10k gil per craft, and they were selling for 30-40k a piece, and you get 3 PCs per craft. So I mean, you know, I was getting 100k gil profit per craft, which I'm sure you can imagine is insane profit. But unfortunately, then the market got a bit saturated. You know, more and more people started crafting it, and then Kingstorm, the botter on this server, decided to jump headfirst in and start botting the market and reduce the price all the way down to 10 to 15k per piece. And that, you know, I mean, the profit isn't anywhere near as ridiculous as it once was. However, in terms of, like, because it's so cheap to make, and because it's still actually selling so much, as long as you bulk craft, I mean, you can still get pretty insane profit. You know, I mean, I'm talking 50-60 million a week is still quite, you know, it's quite doable, to be honest. And you don't really need all that much in terms of time investment. You know, I mean, if you spend a day, well, even just 1 day a week crafting, you could still be looking at 20 to 30 million gil profit on the side, which, you know, is quite nice just heading on into Stormblood. But again, I mean, since you do need a culinarian 4-star for this, you know, chances are that you're already going to have a decent amount of gil behind you. Oh, excuse me. And chances are you're also doing gear crafting, which, as a little side note, you know, I mean, gear is always going to be the best way to make gil. However, it's also the most annoying, since you do have to babysit the market board so much. Whereas with priestly omelettes, you don't. You know, you just whack them up, you leave them, you come back 2 days later. I mean, you see, okay, these haven't sold, so we'll lower the gil. Well, we'll lower the sale price by 100. Come back the next day, all gone. I mean, sometimes, you know, I mean, you can stick a couple 100 omelettes up a night, come back the next day, all gone. So again, do a little research beforehand, but as far as I'm concerned, this is number 1, and you know, even just a day of solid crafting will end up netting you between 10 to 30 million quite easily. And that's going to be all for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit that like button, leave a comment, and as always, peace out.